All right, this is Chapter 5, Section 3, and I've broken it up into two parts. So this is Part 1 of Chapter 5, Section 3, Central European Monarchs Clash. We're going to be talking about the 30 Years' War and some of the consequences that lead up to, or some of the consequences of it, and some of the reasons that lead up to it. The 30 Years' War. Okay, the 30 Years' War starts off as almost as if it was a purely religious war, Catholics versus Protestants, and we've seen that before. But as the war progresses, it becomes pretty obvious that this is not the only reason that some of the groups are in it and fighting. It becomes increasingly more complex. We're going to try and make it simple. Okay, it starts with some protests of Protestants in the area of Bohemia, and they are revolting against their Catholic Habsburg rulers. So the two sides boil down to the Catholic League, which is headed by the Habsburgs that control Austria, the Habsburgs that are on the Spanish throne, and Bavaria, which is also controlled by a Habsburg. Meanwhile, on the other side, we have the Protestant Confederation, which consisted of forces from Sweden, Bohemia, England, Denmark, the Dutch Republic, and France. But wait, you say, because you pay attention, I thought France was Catholic. You are right. However, this is where things start to get muddy. France is not involved because they have any sort of religious inclination. France is very Catholic. Remember, Catherine de' Medici authorized the slaughter of all the Huguenots. But if you look at this map right here, which I have no cursor, if you look at the map of France, which I assume you can find, you'll look on either side, and then you've got in pink is the Austrian Habsburgs, and then in green are the Spanish Habsburgs. So the Habsburgs are all around France. And if they get any stronger, it means that France is going to start getting increasingly pressured by these major powers. So France starts to do anything that they can to weaken the Habsburgs. And if that means that France is going to throw themselves in with, England, their longtime enemy, and all those other Protestants, then that's what France is going to do. The 30 Years' War is pretty awful. 15 to 20% of the German population are killed due to the conflict. There is famine. There is disease. In many cases, the army was not being paid, and they were allowed to just loot and maraud the countryside and just murder, rape, and pillage. It was really, really awful. Here is a famous painting from this time period where you can see the two soldiers, obviously officers from their dress, up on horseback, and then you see these poor peasants who are barefoot, and they don't have a ox or a horse anymore. They probably have nothing, and so they are being forced to plow the land using themselves as a beast of burden, while the oldest man is steering the plow, while meanwhile, these soldiers sort of watch and laugh. One of the most notorious atrocities happens in the city of Magdeburg, and this is in Saxony. This is a predominantly Protestant city, and it was attacked by the Catholic League's forces. When the troops entered the city, they found, some wealth, not a lot, but this army had not been paid in months. So they essentially took their pay by stealing and looting this town. And when they couldn't find enough, and they couldn't find any more, they massacred nearly everyone. What comes out of the 30 Years' War in regards to warfare is ideas of rules of warfare, and that citizens need to be protected, and you can't just wantonly rampage the countryside, burning, raping, and pillaging anymore. So what ends the 30 Years' War? Well, this war pretty much destroys the economy of these German principalities. Now, it says German economy. There is no Germany yet. Don't Forget that. It is still these principalities. And it ruins their economy and decreases their population, which means it takes them even longer to bounce back with their economy. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 is what ends the war. This treaty sort of nominally allows for the freedom of worship as long as you don't rub it in the other side's face. But more importantly, especially for France, this treaty weakens the Habsburgs and strengthens France. One of the other things that comes out of this is the beginning of modern states. This treaty introduces the idea of negotiating a peace as opposed to fighting until you can absolutely destroy and take over and steal all the stuff of the other guy. That you can actually like negotiate an end to the fighting, and that is honorable as opposed to just, decimating him. It also starts to recognize Europe as a group of independent and sovereign states, that these states as they exist now have a right to exist. Take a look at this map. You're going to need to know who owns what. It's going to become important.